Happy Tears Day. Let's talk about Tyr. Now, in Hymir's poem, Tyr is just dropping out of the story, which makes sense. With only one hand, he's not going to be a lot of good rowing a boat or fishing. You can argue that a one-handed man, or even a god, gonna be a bit of a liability at sea. Or maybe Tyr just wants to spend time with his mother and his grandmother while the Thunderer is out fishing with Tyr's father, Hymir. I suspect it just makes absolute sense for the story for Tyr not to be involved in this part. There's also what you can take into consideration, given the nature of Tyr's involvement in this story, that Tyr and Thor are splitting forces almost for keeping Hymir distracted while Tyr's in his parents' home, his family home, to gauge the best way to trick and deceive his family so they can get this cauldron that they're after. And looking into it, as well as things that have been sort of, I don't know, simmering away in my brain about Tyr, that this is one of two instances where Tyr in particular shows or displays or exercises cunning, which makes me question, does Tyr really represent justice? Not really a god of justice. Looking in Carolyn Larrington's notes, interestingly, she puts Tyr down as a god of oaths. I'll get back to that. Obviously, the Aesir are victory gods, and that's led me along a couple of lines of thinking. I mean, there's still a debate to be had whether the binding of Fenrir is an act of justice or not. The problem I have there is, if Tyr represents justice, it's not really a just act to sacrifice his hand in order to bind Fenrir, because that's a deceptive act on Tyr's part. It's a sacrifice he makes, and that's led me down a line of thinking that victory in war can often require sacrifice. Therefore, that is Tyr's part to play in gaining a victory. I mean, okay, Fenrir is bound until Ragnarok, so it's a victory for a large period of time, but it's not a complete victory because Fenrir will break free. It gives the Aesir time to prepare, so it's more of a sacrifice. So is Tyr a god of sacrifice? Because that seems to be what's at play there. However, looking into it more as a god of oaths, looking at what Loki throws at Tyr in Lokasenna, that makes more sense, and that Tyr keeps to his oaths that he makes, i.e., in dealing with Fenrir, he is committed to keeping his hand inside Fenrir's mouth, even to the point of losing his hand, so that he maintains his oath, or he suffers the consequences of breaking his own oath. That still leaves me with when we get to Hymir's poem, it's let's go trick my family to get this cauldron. There's no oaths being made there. It's just deception, which doesn't sort of weigh in properly with the general perception of Tyr as a god, as I have seen sort of in communities and that. It's very much sort of, we overlook that because he's a god of justice, but it's not very just to go, hey, let's go trick my family to get this cauldron that we need. Maybe that's again a sacrifice Tyr is prepared to make in order to achieve a goal, helping people out. It just, I don't know, I feel a little bit, like Tyr, there's a misconception about Tyr. Even now, having thought about making this video for a couple of weeks now, and I still feel a little bit sort of undecided. The sacrifice idea, a warrior being prepared to make a sacrifice is considered a warrior, makes sense. And that he's prepared to sacrifice things for the greater good. Now, you can argue also that that is a greater sense of justice. However, if you're prepared to lie or deceive to achieve that, that shows that's more cunning than sort of honourable. And I don't want to say that Tyr is without honour, especially when sort of to fulfill his oath, when they bind Fenrir, Tyr is prepared to sacrifice his hand. Making a sacrifice play makes a lot more sense. Being a source to sacrifice to make an oath to, makes sense. Now, obviously, in Lokasenna, Loki makes the accusation that Loki has slept with Tyr's wife, and that Tyr's wife fathered a child by Loki. And there's no other details about this. You're left to speculate. But it occurs to me that the ideal goddess to balance Tyr would be Var. And this then leaves you sort of saying, is this a truth or a lie on Loki's part? Go figure. That Loki wanting to get back at Tyr for, being the cause of Fenrir being bound, Loki's child, would make an accusation against Var, who is the goddess of oaths, wedding vows, in particular, that to try and embarrass Var, Tyr's wife, in this way, in that moment, would be the most sort of cunning sort of accusation for Loki to make as a parting sort of blow at Tyr, and saying that Tyr has never got any recompense for Loki being involved with Var and causing Var to basically break what she stands and represents, there being no recompense for that. It's just that sort of, there's a lot of stinging sort of little blows there that you then sort of have to decide, did it happen or not? Or does that realign with what Odin says in the Havermal about wives or women? I am very much feel it's just a casual accusation just to see if anyone bites, rather than it being a truth. I feel very much that in Lokasenna, Loki says a lot of truths, hard truths, truths that hit home, as well as making some casual accusations as well. Really, does Loki sleep with Var? If indeed Var is Tyr's wife, it would be immense fun for Loki to make a goddess of wedding vows break her wedding vow by her sleeping with Loki when Tyr isn't there, out the way, whatever. That would be an immense jest, wouldn't it? And breaking that vow to then not, for Tyr not to get any recompense. Obviously, it's just that sort of the twisting of the dagger to the accusation. Or the truth is, Loki's just saying hurtful things, being a dick. And that Var is a paragon of what she represents. And I guess really, if Tyr has a mind for deception, the accusation should then make him question the fidelity of his wife. It feels very much like there's a lot going on there to work out. Maybe overthinking. That's fair enough. Just Tyr is one of those gods that you've got to work out what he represents by what's written or in the Poetic Edda. It's interesting. I like the theory. Obviously, it's my theory, so I'm going to like it. It makes sense that perhaps Tyr's wife is Var. They represent vows, promises, oaths. So it's just that element of being prepared to deceive on Tyr's part that just adds an extra dimension to a general conception of Tyr. There's also some of Tyr's heritage is there to sort of think about a little bit. I mean, a many-headed grandmother. Well, we've not heard of a many-headed Jotnar, or many-headed Jotun, I should say, since sort of the creation of the first Jotnar. And that would mean, lends itself to the theory that Tyr is or was once more revered or equally as revered as Odin. It's from a similar generation, i.e. at the time that Odin and his brothers was born, Tyr was also being born, that would put them on a generational level of equality. But that's sort of threading together things that may not attach. But obviously, a many-headed Jotun, how often are they described? So it's Tyr's Day, so this is a video for you, and you are fascinating. And there's a lot really to digest and think about. I want to get to know you better, and yet there's little written. Well, that's some theorizing about Tyr. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please comment, like the video if you've gone through a lot of my rambling, and see you soon. Take care. Cheers. Goodbye.